Good evening and welcome. This is Spotlight Africa, brought to you by Spectrum Television and Planet Radio. My name is Uyai Anyekan. Thanks for joining us. Today on Spotlight Africa, South Sudan President sacks minister. Kenya Parliament bans counter suits loved by President William Ruto. Zimbabwe court overturns top opposition member's conviction. DR Congo regrets EU cancellation of poll observer mission. Plus, Ethiopia cholera outbreak kills 23. These stories are all just ahead on Spotlight Africa. Stay with us. Thanks for joining us. First in Spotlight Africa, South Sudan's President Salva Kiir has sacked 2 ministers and the state governor of Warab State in the north. Kiir dismissed the Presidential Affairs Minister Barnaba Mariel Benjamin as well as the Minister of Trade Kwel Athian in a decree read on State TV. He also removed the Public Service Minister Bangazi Joseph Bakosoro and made him the Minister for Presidential Affairs. Meanwhile, no reason was given for the dismissals, but they follow the recent sacking of several security officials, including the police chief, over rumors of a coup. Away from that, there have been more airstrikes in Sudan's capital, Khartoum, as the army targets positions held by its rival, the Rapid Support Forces RSF. They follow what the RSF called a significant operation it had carried out in the twin city of Omdurman. Meanwhile, there is little sign of an end to the fighting that broke out in April. Negotiations sponsored by the United States and Saudi Arabia to alleviate the deepening humanitarian crisis have failed, and international attention has now been diverted by the conflict in Gaza. Right groups accuse the RSF and allied Arab militias of committing atrocities, including mass killings in the western region of Darfur. They warn that civilians in Khartoum might face more violence. The United Nations says that more than 6 million people have fled their homes. In another development, Kenya's parliament has banned the wearing of a unique suit named after the late Zambian president Kenneth Kaunda with the building. The Speaker of Parliament, Moses Wetangula, said Kaunda suits as well as traditional African clothes were no longer welcomed within Parliament. Wetangula said his decision to ban the suit was due to emerging fashion trends that threaten the established parliamentary dress code. Reports say Kenyan President William Ruto often wears the suits on official occasions, making it popular within the political class. In a separate development, the Zimbabwe High Court has overturned a lower court's conviction of Job Shikala, the National Deputy Chairman of the Opposition Citizens Coalition for Change, CCC. He had been found guilty of obstructing the cause of justice. Shikala was in May convicted and fined $600 or 6 months in prison for obstructing justice for allegedly posting a video relating to last year's killing of Moblessing Ali. Another 6 months were wholly suspended on the condition that he must not commit a similar offense in the ensuing 5 years. Despite being exonerated by the court, Shikala remains behind bars where he has languished since his arrest in June last year because he faces additional charges including incitement to commit violence and disorderly conduct. Away from that, the West African States Navy says nearly 3 tons of cocaine has been seized from a ship off the coast of Senegal. This is one of the largest drugs hauls by Senegal's Navy. The region is a transit point for Latin American cartels trafficking drugs to Europe and elsewhere. However, the Navy did not give details of the vessel or its crew, except that 10 people were on board and one of them was a Senegalese national. The Navy said 10 people were on board the ship, including a Senegalese. Elsewhere, the charity Save the Children says at least 23 people have died in a new cholera outbreak that hit communities displaced by recent flooding in eastern Ethiopia. In a statement today, the UK-based relief agency has said more than 770 cases of cholera have been confirmed in just 2 weeks in the Somali region. The area was hit by the recent flooding and unusually heavy rains. According to the United Nations, the downpours have affected 1.5 million people across the country, with the numbers forced to leave their homes reaching 600,000. It added that only 10% of those affected are currently receiving aid as Ethiopia continues to struggle with gaps in funding. Meanwhile, more than 90 districts across Ethiopia have reported cases of cholera, with Save the Children warning the situation could worsen as more rains are expected in at least 3 regions. In another development, a court in Germany has sentenced a Gambian man to life in prison for crimes against humanity and murder over his role in a notorious paramilitary unit. The man, identified as Bale I, worked as a driver for the squad known as the Junglers on behalf of the Gambia's former president Yahya Jammeh. In 2019, during hearing of Gambia's Truth, Reconciliation and Reparations Commission (TRRC), 3 other members of the Junglers accused Jammeh of ordering numerous murders, including the notorious 2013 killing of 2 U.S. Gambian businessmen and veteran local journalist Dadia Hedra. According to reports, among the crimes that Bell I was accused of was helping to stop Hedra's car before he was killed and driving one of the assassins away. Meanwhile, after 22 years as president, Jammeh initially refused to give up power after losing an election in 2016. He finally went into exile after regional states sent troops to force him to step down. The United Nations has said it is appalled by the killing of dozens of civilians by Islamist gunmen in northern Burkina Faso on Sunday. It said a large number of fighters from a group known as JNIM had attacked a military base, homes and camps for displaced people in the city of Djibo, killing at least 40 civilians. Earlier, the army confirmed that several hundreds of armed men had tried to penetrate its military base there. Burkina Faso is battling a jihadist insurgency that spilled over from neighboring Mali in 2015. The country is ruled by a transitional government put in place following a military coup last year. In another development, 1 person has been killed at an election rally for Democratic Republic of Congo opposition leader Moise Katumbi. According to officials, the death occurred as Katumbi's convoy was heading to the rally venue in the southeastern city of Kindu. Hervé Kediase, spokesman of Katumbi's Ensemble Party, said live bullets were fired at the rally and that stones were thrown. Meanwhile, the fatality is the first of the presidential campaign, which began 9 days ago and will last for a month. The elections will take place on December 20. Meanwhile, the government in the Democratic Republic of Congo has expressed regret at the European Union's decision to withdraw its electoral observation mission from the country. DR Congo is set to hold presidential and parliamentary elections on the 20th of December, with 23 candidates running for president amid a tense political climate. According to reports, the cancellation of the observer mission came as discussions on the European Union mission's deployment were ongoing. In a statement, the government said it was committed to successfully holding the elections with transparency, inclusiveness and freedom, and would welcome all observer missions wishing to work in accordance with the laws and regulations of DR Congo. Elsewhere, a regional court has dismissed a petition seeking to stop the construction of a controversial $4 billion crude oil pipeline from Uganda to Tanzania. The East African Court of Justice, EACJ, ruled that the case was filed too late and was therefore time-barred and beyond its jurisdiction. Meanwhile, the 1,443 kilometers East Africa Crude Oil Pipeline, EACOP, which is being constructed by the Ugandan and Tanzanian government, along with Total Energies and China National Offshore Oil Corporation, has faced pushback from local communities and rights and environmental groups. The groups say the project is displacing communities from their land, desecrating graves along the pipeline route and causing environmental harm. Natural Justice and the other three civil society organizations that filed the case in 2020 said they would appeal against the decision. 70-year-old Ugandan gives birth to twins. Stay tuned for details of this and more after this time out. Thanks for staying tuned, and now to the rest of the news stories on Spotlight Africa. South Africa has received a consignment of 450 gasoline generators donated by China to alleviate the country's severe power cuts. The generators have arrived in South Africa but will be officially received today by Electricity Minister Conscientio Ramakopa. The donation is part of the Technical Assistance Program that China and South Africa signed during August BRICS Summit in Johannesburg. In the deal, China promised to donate emergency equipment worth 167 million rand and a development grant of 500 million rand. South Africa has struggled with power cuts referred to as load shedding in recent years, causing much frustration. Meanwhile, millions of people are without light every day, sometimes for up to 10 hours in cities and towns across South Africa. Meanwhile, a 70-year-old Ugandan woman has just had twins after becoming pregnant through IVF treatment, becoming the oldest woman in Africa to give birth. According to the hospital where she had the babies, the Women's Hospital International and Fertility Center in the Ugandan capital Kampala, said Safina Nakumwaya delivered a boy and a girl. Nakumwaya told privately owned NTV channel that it was her second delivery in 3 years after she gave birth to a girl in 2020. She added that she had experienced multiple difficulties during the pregnancy, including desertion by the children's father. Moving away from that, hundreds of mourners have taken part in the ceremony to bury Clemens Mentenga, a Tanzanian who was living in Israel. The 22-year-old agriculture student has been laid to rest in Kewia village in Tanzania's northern district of Rombo, surrounded by his family. It remains unclear how he died, but Clemens was killed following Hamas's attacks on Israel on the 7th of October. Clemens had arrived in Israel as part of a study program just 1 month before the attack and was due to graduate from Sokoine University of Agriculture in Tanzania last week. His family and the local community had high hopes his agricultural experience would help many in the village where agriculture is a lifeline. On a rather sad development, 4 Moroccan migrants died off Spain's southern coast near Cadiz, with 4 others being taken to hospital for severe hypothermia. The bodies of the 4 who apparently drowned were found near their boat that had been carrying 32 other migrants. 27 of the occupants were reportedly forced by the crew to jump off the boat into the sea, and 23 of them were rescued alive. Meanwhile, the police have opened an inquiry into the incident. Elsewhere, the Somali authorities say more than 1 million people have now been forced to abandon their homes in the country due to floods caused by the El Nino weather phenomenon. Reports say the heaviest rains in more than 2 decades have caused widespread destruction, displacement and death across the Horn of Africa. It comes as world leaders gather in Dubai to discuss the climate crisis at the COP28 summit. At least 270 people are reported to have died in Somalia, Kenya and southern Ethiopia, as the continental region, which is just coming out of prolonged drought, braces for further torrential rains. Lastly, on Spotlight Africa, Ugandan opposition member of parliament and former music star Bobby Wine has made his first trip to the United Kingdom in a decade, more than 3 weeks after the UK government lifted a reported 9-year visa ban against him. Bobby Wine had allegedly been banned from visiting the United Kingdom after the release of his 2014 song Burn Them, which rights groups said contained lyrics inciting homophobic attacks. Bobby Wine was denied a UK visa shortly after releasing the song, forcing him to cancel 2 planned shows in the country. At the time, the UK Home Office declined to confirm whether it had banned Bobby Wine's entry when he was contacted by newsmen. Recall that on the 5th of November, Bobby Wine, real name Robert Kayakwanlanyi, said that he was finally able to return to the United Kingdom. And that's all we have for you today on Spotlight Africa, brought to you by Spectrum Television and Planet Radio, bringing you news all around the continent. Do also follow us on social media, subscribe to our YouTube channel, all of which you can find on our website, spectrumtvlive.ng. You can also do well to follow us on Planet Radio 101.ng. My name is Uyai Aneka, and thanks for joining us, and do enjoy the rest of your evening.